thank you to each and everyone for joining us here this afternoon. I'm first just going to give the honourable members an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then I'll give over to you, Minister and HOD.
Thank you, Chair. Kayla Murray, member of the committee.
Thank you. Dankie voorsitter Pieter Murray, lid van hierdie komitee.
Good afternoon, Chair. Afternoon, MEC, HOD, officials, and everyone present. My name is Piet Maran, a member of this committee.
As I've said, a warm welcome to you all. And with that, Minister, if you could introduce yourself and then allow your HOD to introduce the team.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody, and members of the committee. My name is Ivan Meyer, MEC for Agriculture. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. Mukhalis Wopetsa, Head of Agriculture. I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Lindy Govender, Chief Financial Officer.
Good afternoon, members. Chairperson, the Minister, Ilse Troutman, Deputy Director General for Agricultural Research and Regulatory Services. Thank you.
Afternoon, Chairperson, members, Keith Du Plessis, CEO of Casidra.
Good afternoon, members. Fred van Zyl, CFO Casidra.
Good afternoon, Paul Rockman, Chief Director, Operational Support Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Jackie Pandaram, Chief Director responsible for Rural Development.
Good afternoon, members. Gertrude Jacobs. I'm the Director for Agricultural Skills Development.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Bongusa Madudi, the Director for Agricultural Economic Services. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Dirk Trotsky, Director Business Planning and Strategy.
Thank you. If I may ask the backbenchers there to please move to a microphone and just introduce yourself as well so that we have a full record of participants. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. My name is Mariki Cornelissen, Deputy Director at the College.
Good afternoon, members. Debbie Zana in the Financial Management section.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Jerry Aris, responsible for Agricultural Producer Support and Development. Thank you, Chair.
Good day, Chairperson. My name is Peter Kwek. I'm standing in for Asha Peterson, who is off sick, from the program Sustainable Resource Use and Management. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chief. I'm Jean Mziza, Chief Director of Veterinary Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Ricky van Jaarsveld, Head of Ministry in Minister Meyer's office.
Afternoon, Chair. I'm Peter van Jaarsveld, Assistant to the LOGP.
Good afternoon, everyone. Daniel Johnson. I'm the Media Liaison Officer in the Ministry.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Neff, Chief Program Officer, Casidra.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl Borain. I'm the accountant for Casidra.
Good. Thank you very much. And as I've said, a warm welcome to you all. Looking forward to this meeting. I have received apologies on behalf of the Honourable Derek America, as well as Mr. Daryl Jacobs from the department. Thank you for submitting that in advance. As I've indicated, we are here to consider the proposed budget for the department for the upcoming financial year. And with that, Minister, if you would be so kind to just to introduce the budget, the principles behind the budget, etc. And I trust you will then hand over to the HOD. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee. It's a great pleasure to present Vote 11, Agriculture Appropriation Bill 2024, following the budget speech of the Western Cape Minister of Finance in the House. I have only 2 slides. I'm now on page 3. This committee will know that I have developed 5 ministerial priorities for the last 5 years. These priorities are still intact. different years, we have different emphasis, but in terms of the budget proposals, these are still the core ministerial priorities, namely structured education, training and research, rural safety, still a very important priority. Also in this budget, market access, particularly important given the next slide, farmer support and climate change. Chair, on the page 4, and that I want to conclude there and hand over to the HOD. I think in 2024, where we are now, a major reset of agriculture is needed. We are now leapfrogging into the next 5 years. And that's why my end of term report here today, leapfrog into the next term of office, whoever is in that position. It may not be me, it may be a different party. That's the nature of democratic governance. And so I reset this budget in the context of the geopolitical developments, the global wars. We know what is happening in the world. Secondly, we have seen extreme weather patterns. We've been a product of that. In fact, last month was the hottest February in the history of the world post the Industrial Revolution, and that is quite dramatic. Last year, we had seen 4 major floods here in the Western Cape, and you will see the impact on the budget proposals now. Also very important, the colleagues will then say, what have you done about it? We have developed a climate change summit, and we are happy to report on that through Dr. Ilse and the HOD. Well, we have seen also a major impact on the harbour and the infrastructure issues, but also the issue of conservation agriculture. This financial year that we are now talking about, we're going to see the 9th World Congress on Conservation Agriculture. That is one of the strategies in terms of climate change, and we are the host of the World Conservation Agriculture. And lastly, it is accessing global agri-funding as a result of shrinking budgets. We have seen the current situation in the national geofinancial architecture, budget deficit of the region of beyond 5%. We have seen a debt to GDP ratio closing in the region of 80%, and that had dramatic impacts. The Minister of Finance has indicated what is the impact of the fiscal situation in the country, the wage bill, and all of this had a dramatic impact. And this budget now that we will present, we will see what that impact and implication is for this. I'm very happy that Dr. Mukhale and I were in with Jerry Aris. We went to Italy. One of the discussions we had with IFAD, which is the International Fund for Agricultural Development, is to look at how can we access global funding, given that the current ambassador in Italy is now also the chair of the Committee on Global Food Security, and we had some engagements with them. And we're also happy that we had met some colleagues from Italy. Dr. Mukhale and them have met with them, and we certainly we will have, as South Africa, have to look more on global accessing global funding, and that also goes for global climate change funding. So I leave this for that. But I want to thank the department because I looked at putting a document like this together with all these program managers as well as with CACIDA. This is an enormous amount of work, and I want to thank all the program managers, and also want to thank the accounting officer as well as our new CFO that we have already met before, and I want to thank them upfront for the outstanding work they have done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Doctor.
Chair, thank you very much. I'm now on slide number 5. Jumping straight to slide number 6. The budget that we present today is 1.018 billion rands. But we thought there are a few things we want to raise for the committee's attention. And the first one is that agriculture is a very complex biological system. And if you operate in a fiscally constricted environment like ours, the temptation is always there to terminate stuff. But as a biological system, it becomes very difficult to terminate anything because every part of this system feeds off each other. So it was important for us that we rather reduce our targets as opposed to terminating anything. But of course, when we developed our strategic plan 5 years ago, this was informed by detailed research with theories of change. And 5 years later, we are still convinced that that decision was actually a good decision. So going forward, you will see in the APP that we have actually resorted to reducing targets as opposed to terminating anything broadly, because it becomes very difficult and dangerous to do so. But equally wanting to protect the integrity of the system and the science, because agriculture is a science. You cannot just willy-nilly cut and reduce in terms of your research flocks and stuff like that. Minister referred to climate change as a major risk for us, but also present opportunities for us in the Western Cape. We have joined forces with colleagues in the Mediterranean region. You also attended the COP28 last year, whereupon we signed the MCAP. But also we've got an MOU with the University of Stellenbosch, their School of Climate Studies, importantly lifting on the issues of the One Health. Also the issue of the working with our stakeholders in terms of connecting and creating the kind of sector that we want to see. Blended finance for us, it becomes a very important issue, because with the dwindling budgets, you've got to look elsewhere for funding to support your farmers. And I think seated here, we're comfortable that with the HOTFIN finance mechanism that was started about 7 years ago, for every R1 that we invest as government, there's R1.20 that comes through. And we think that's very, very important. Cost of living crisis is real, and I think that is why we continue with the work around food gardens, contributing to hope, but also on its own is a symbol of hope for the citizens of the Western Cape. Also, as a department that is outside the city, we've got a lot of must pays. So out of the 1.018 billion, almost 100 million of that goes to the must pays, the things that only us must pay, and the rest of the departments that are in the cities, those kind of funds is actually supported by DOI in the space. In terms of oak performance environment, I think the point we want to raise here is that in terms of our massive transformative purpose for the department is 5 things. We want to increase agricultural production. If you look at that and juxtapose it with the minister's ministerial priorities, totally aligned. Market access and exports, totally aligned in terms of the growth for jobs, and in particular, priority focus area number 2. Food security and food safety, very important for us, and the work that we're doing around the well-being priority of the province, in terms of the 3 priorities that we are contributing to. Ecological infrastructure and river protection works, again contributing to the G4J and the priority focus area number 4. And I think members would have noticed that last year when we experienced the 4 massive episodes of flood, in areas where there was ecological infrastructure and river protection works, the damage was actually lesser than in the areas where this work had not taken place. Minister referred to rural safety, a very important priority for us, given that our clients are still in the rural areas, and therefore their safety is important for us in the work that we do. I'm now on slide number 10 in terms of the year-to-date achievements. Up to Q3 of this current financial year, we have reached about 94% of our targets. I believe we're on track to reach probably 98% in terms of what the target we had set ourselves for the year. In terms of the outlook for 2024-25, we have shared this with you, Chairperson and members, just demonstrating a linkage between the work we do in the province with the Agriculture Agri-Processing Master Plan, which is a plan that is championed by the National Department, Agriculture, Rural Development and Land Reform. But equally, the next slide, slide 13, demonstrates the linkages we have in terms of the work we do at the department and the VIPs of the PSP, Provincial Strategic Plan. The next slide talks to what we're doing in terms of growth for jobs. We mapped that out as to what of our indicators contribute to each of the PFAs. There are 7 PFAs at the sector level, 35, the province level, 40, a total of 75 indicators contribute sharply to the growth for jobs strategy of the province. We also thought it was important to demonstrate the linkages. I'm now on slide 15 with respect to the JDMA with regards to the districts that is detailed there as provided. Links to the departmental outcomes. That slide was also demonstrated here. And I think the effort here is really to map out what is happening at the department to the extent that it is linked to the province, but it's also linked to the sectoral issues that we are needing to deal with. Chairperson, I'm now on slide number 17. We're looking at the budget pressures. Those are the figures that are detailed there. Program number 1, replacement of the vineyard, 5.4 million rands. Diesel for generators at the building in terms of the load shedding are around 2.4 million. And the mass pays, most of those are paid under program number 1. Program number 2, river protection works, increased by 18.5 million, and that is once-off. Flood damage support, 38 million. It's also a once-off allocation. Program number 3, there was really a massive reduction in terms of the comprehensive agricultural support program, but a lot of those were seen in the LEMA grant, almost 20 million rands that was cut already for the year 2024-25. Suffice to also say that the provincial treasury was able to provide a relief of about 50% of that. So we've got a 10 million once-off allocation. In terms of the program number 4, veterinary services, the laboratory would actually be ready for to take samples and do its work from the 1st of April 2024. And we are really very excited as to the opportunities that present for our sector, but also for the department. Program number 5, diesel, in terms of the work we're doing on the farms, 3.5 million rands to support us in terms of load shedding. Animal fodder, about 3.447 million rand that goes into that. Program number 7, reduction in terms of the agri-processing by 50%. That's program 6. Program 7, national grant allocation for infrastructure of 8.441 under CASP, and in program number 8, there was no change whatsoever. Minister referred to the global risks that, of course, we're not immune to them because we are a sector that is dealing a lot with the international counterparts in terms of our export orientation. So if you look at the World Economic Forum perspective around the risks, we mapped there what the situation looks like in terms of 2023. And of course, you'll see that issues around the environment and climate change tops the list there. And therefore, as a department, we cannot be oblivious to that reality because our farmers will definitely be affected. I'm now on slide number 20, just to indicate what the 2024 report of WEF had indicated in terms of the risks that continue to confront our sector here in the Western Cape. But also we have appointed the Bureau of Agriculture Policy to really do some quick scanning into the agricultural environment. So in the third quarter, the report indicated that there were top risks that we needed to look at. Number 1 is animal disease and lack of biosecurity. And that is a major risk, not only for our market access, but also for food safety, because any lapses there would be catastrophic, not only to business people, but to the citizens in the Western Cape. Breakdown of critical infrastructure, and Minister referred to that. Of course, the third one is extreme weather, climate change, drought, hail and floods, electricity supply shortages. I mean, that's the big one, but also the whole issue of cost of living. And that is why our food garden program for us remains extremely important. And we continue to support our citizens to be able to provide food for themselves. The next slide will be taken by my CFO. It will then be followed by the Chief Executive Officer of Casidra, and Chairperson will then come in and conclude, but we're going to be very quick. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Thank you so much, Chair. So I'll be taking you through the next few slides in terms of the numbers. In terms of our economic classification budgets, just maybe overall, as you've heard, we have a 1.018 billion rand budget, which is an increase of 6.7%. But I would like to highlight that if you look at our allocation, we've had an increase in our earmarked funding of 51 million in this financial year, over the 24-25. And this is really funded from our equitable share. So you would have seen that equitable share actually only increased by 4 million. So that difference between 51 and 4 needs to basically come from within the department across all the programs. So there will be severe budget pressures again in this financial year that's coming. And as HOD has alluded to, the must pays of about 86 million, which includes our transfer of core funding to Casidra, which is also an allocation from Treasury, which makes things even more tight in the department. The national grants has increased slightly. However, the Ilima Letsema cuts of 19.3 is something to take note of. This is the first time that the department has seen cuts in that specific grant. However, we have been assisted by the Treasury, as you've heard, by an amount which is also a once-off of 10 million. Our earmarked funding, as I mentioned, this year has increased significantly, but also being once-offs. It's not carried through in the MTEF. And our priority funding as well has had a small increase of 17%, but also mainly because of the once of 10 million. In terms of COE, we're estimating, or we put in there 233 million. 461 million, which is an increase of 6%. And that's really to cover the unfunded wage agreement of 4.8%, the increases that we have to accommodate in our current budgets, for which we did not get any additional funding, as well as the 1.5% pay progressions, which also affects all the programs right across, because now there's also severe pressure on our cost of employment.
And we, Mr. Chair, don't run through this as if it's a 100-meter race. Can you calm down and speak in the community can understand what you're saying? You're racing at 100 kilometers an hour, and that is not helping this committee at all.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of our goods and services budget, currently at 233.1 million, there's a small increase of decrease of 0.66%. What I would just like to highlight here is that the cost drivers of the department has remained unchanged, especially on the side of the must pays. There we've seen increases in those costs, which is unique to our department and which makes the available money for service delivery less each year, which places a lot of pressure on all programs. So again, you would see in the details of the vote that there has been shrinkage in a lot of the line items, but we do know that this is something we'll have to address in the adjustments period as well. So I'm not going to go through the detail because I think that is in the vote itself. If I can move into the transfers line, 293.3 million. This is really because of the 21% increase that we see there because of the once-off earmarked increases, specifically on river protection, the flood damage, and the ecological infrastructure. We also the national grants, as we've already mentioned, that slightly increased, although it was the big cut in Ilima that we've seen that's come through. In terms of our capital, there's a budget of 30.9. You'll also see a reduction there of about 26%. And this was really because of certain infrastructure or capital projects that was concluded or will be concluded by the end of this financial year. So we won't see a recurring cost come through, specifically on the labs, for example, and the export control office that's moved now to Roland Street. If I can then move on to the next slide. In terms of the program budgets, again, this is just to highlight the numbers. I won't go through each and every number, but I would like to highlight again that because of the reduction in our equitable share, the real reduction, considering the increase in the earmarked funds, all the programs have had to take more cuts in this 24-25 budget. And also then, of course, the unfunded wage agreement of 4.8%. HOD has already spoken to the major pressures and the major highlights in the different programs on the earlier slide. So I would not want to repeat anything. So there's nothing I would like to add at this point. We can obviously field questions in the detail. If we can move to the earmarked allocations, just again, maybe a repeat of what I've raised already. It's just a breakdown of the various earmarked fundings that we've received for 24-25 specifically, most of it being in Program 2, and the replacement of the vineyards of 5.4 million that sits with Program 1. And I would also like to highlight for 23-24, even though it looks like it's a significant increase, there were actually 11 million rand cuts in 23-24 in the grants as well. If we can move then, sorry, that was earmarked conditional grants. This is again just a summary of all our conditional grants. As you can see, the first line there, Lima Letsema, is the big cut that we experienced of 19.3 million. The others had slight increases. And as you can see, the split between the cost between Program 3 and 7. So in total, the 176.8 million. If we can move into the slide 27. Slide 27 is just to reflect on the unique costs or the must-pays that we've referred to earlier on, just to show per program how much is carried by each program. And just by example, the big must-pays are our municipal services, the security that we have to pay, the cafeteria we have at Elsenburg, our cleaning services, the diesel, and so forth. So these are unique to us in that no other department needs to carry this internally. Thank you, HOD. I'm going to hand over to Keith.
Thank you, CFO. Thank you, honourable members. So before I hand over to the CFO chairperson, I'd like to quickly run through a couple of slides, just showing the value that CACEDRA has been adding to the province over the past number of years. So if we go to slide number 29, you'll see that this is a depiction of the funding that CACEDRA has received over the past 18 years versus the value of the projects that we've been implementing. So that is the value that we've been implementing is the blue bars, the tall bars, and the gray bars indicate, the shorter bars indicate the funding that we've received. Now, if we look at, for example, 2020, CACEDRA received 27 million Rand in core funding, and we implemented 470 million rands of projects. That is roughly at a cost of 5.7%. Now, I don't think any private sector organization will be able to deliver that that value. And over the period of 18 years, CACEDRA roughly costed the Western Cape government 12% per annum to implement these projects, which is obviously on par with what private sector could do. Then in the following slide, we again show the funding that we received, which is the gray bar, versus the cost to implement these projects. And you'll see that consistently over the past 18 years, the funding received has been slightly less than the actual cost to implement these projects. And obviously these numbers are audited numbers. So what CACEDRA has been doing over the past 18 years is actually to close that gap by doing projects on the external to projects that's been funded by the government. So it would be projects done for the private sector, interest earned, and all those type of income. So yeah, so that's just that slide. And then the following slide, Chairperson, quickly we just also want to reflect the equity position of CACEDRA over the past 18 years. So 25 million Rand was injected into this company at its inception. And at the close of this financial year, we would be very close to actually having equity of 25 million, which shows that over the past 18 years, no money's been wasted. And we also haven't accumulated money, stored up money. We've actually spent the money of the Western Cape government very, very well. So with that, I'm just going to hand over to the CFO.
Chair, thank you. I'm on slide 32. The increase, this is a summary of CACEDRA's expenditure. The expenditure increased or will increase from 41.5 million to 51.28. It's a 23.5% increase. Between programs 2, 3, and 4, there will be a reallocation of staff so as to align the programs with the reality on the ground. The big increase then is in the corporate section, 23.8 to 30.67, 30.67 million. And the reason for that is we've included program cost salaries mainly for 2 programs, and it is to the value of 4.7 million. Then there's a once-off cost for IT integration, also included in the 24-25 financial year. It is 1.7 million. And then the others, the breakup of the others is then training for staff as well, and fuel cost due to the increase in the use of the generator during load shedding, and travel cost. If you page over to the summary of the income, because there's more expenditure, obviously we need to generate more income, and you'll find that we've included the funding for the projects, and we've included it in net own income. We already had questions from our board, and management decided to implement the new programs on a phased-in basis, meaning that if we don't get the money, the funding with then the expenditure cannot be incurred, so as to at the end of the next financial year be in a break-even position. The cost of employment, like I said, increased from 30.7 to 37 million due to additional staff being appointed. The other dilemma is if you don't incur the cost, you cannot generate income. Goods and services, then it will increase from 10.7 to 13.5. And the current mix as it is now is a salary cost of 73%, and 26% is for every rand that Cassidra will spend in the new financial year, 73 will go towards salaries and 26% towards goods and services. We've the funding that we will get from the department is for the 24-25 financial year is 32.85 million, and that is inclusive of that. At the bottom, we've got capital expenditure of 2.3 million. It's a vehicle and IT costs mainly there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Can I just the last slide?
Yes.
I think at the risk of repeating everything we said, that it's a complex system. So what you'll see reduction in targets and no cutting of any program or sub-program. I think that's the first one. Climate change remains a major focus for us. In fact, in December, we had internal socialization with the rest of the departments in the Western Cape. Of course, last week, Friday, we had a climate change summit. For the first time, where government engaged with the private sector to then look at what is possible going into the future. But also to underscore the point that our research efforts continue to build resilience in terms of creating a resilient agricultural system, but also a competitive sector, because we're not alone in the global space. We have to compete with our other colleagues elsewhere. Of course, animal diseases and lack of biosecurity remains a major risk for us. And I think one of the strategies that we connect with the industry, but also with the Eastern Cape and the Northern Cape, because these are the bordering provinces. And if there's anything that is not going well there, we run the risk of receiving it here. So it has become very important that we engage with those colleagues. Cost of living, the issue of food insecurity. I mean, we support that through our food garden. But the last point I think to make here, Chairperson, is that we'll do everything in our power to protect the flame. And the flame is that we need to build on trust and build hope for the citizens of the province. But we remain committed to do so responsibly and responsibly. And that's really what this budget of 1.018 billion seeks to do in 2024-25. Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I do know that the Honourable Marais found that to be a bit quick, but I think many others appreciate that. Thank you very much. So Honourable Marais, we'll give you an opportunity to think about your questions. Are there any other members who would like to go before the Honourable Marais with questions regarding the budget vote? Honourable Marais, you're recognised.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'll keep it to 3 questions. My first is related to slide 10. I just wanted to understand there were a few sub-programs such as agricultural engineering services, land use management, veterinary diagnostic services, and macroeconomic support, where the percentage achieved was between 50 and 67%. We could just get an understanding of what contributed to that lack of achievement there, but otherwise just commend the department on nearly 100% for everything else, so well done. Then secondly, slides 12, slide 15, and slide 16, we see with regards to number of indicators under sector, there is a 0 for creating production, marketing, trade infrastructure, and trade facilitation, as well as under sector for improving youth participation, women, people with disabilities, and agricultural economy. And that spills over onto slide 16 as well. Slide 16 is just also increase access to agricultural related economic opportunities for rural communities. So I just want to understand why that indicator is 0. And then thirdly, Chair, if we could just get a bit more information on the project Ilima Letsema. I haven't quite heard of it before, so if you could just indulge me with a bit more information. I see that there was a cut of 19.3 million, and then PT provided relief of 10 million once off. So just to firstly know what that project is, and then why was there the cut and the relief of funding subsequently? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members that would like to pose questions? If I could ask you to follow the example set by first just prioritizing your first 3 questions. There will be numerous rounds. Honourable Murray, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Ek sal Afrikaans praat, net om 'n balans te gee. Ek sien hulle die julle mikpunte verlaag. You reduced your targets. I'd like to know about what were the targets which you set, and how did you create a priority order of which targets that you want to feel that you must reduce? You said you're protecting the system as a science. Just want you to elaborate on that. How do you protect the system as a science? What are we talking about here? You said climate change present opportunities. Would like you to come forward and tell exactly what opportunities do you see that climate change present, and if there are reduced funding and reduced targets, if you must decide which of all these priorities you're going to list, which would you say is top of your list and which will also fall by the wayside? Because we have dwindling budgets and we do not know exactly what's going to happen. And last point is, do you think that the departments are top heavy in terms of staff? Because how much of the total budget is in salaries? Is that something you're looking at? If not, why not? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions from you, Honourable Maran?
Thanks, Chairperson, and again, good afternoon to all those present here. So what I've heard now, that even if there's an increase in the budget, it's not necessarily an increase, because in the previous financial year, there was a major cut. I don't have in front of me 2022, 2023 to make that connection, whether there's indeed. But what I see in front of me is an increase of the budget. Chair, before I get into this presentation, Mr. Mogali, the HOD in the MEC, and your ministerial priorities, which speaks to rural safety in rural communities, well-being. So last year, MEC, I brought to your attention full flight. And you made a commitment saying that I will send a team there and investigate. People's electricity and water has been cut. I haven't heard anything about that. And whether indeed you have sent a team there. At the end of last year, there was an accident, a truck full of farm workers. You released a statement, MEC, you said you will investigate. And I'm not sure whether you indeed appointed the team to investigate and the cost of that investigation. And then lastly for this round, farmer support. And at the end of last year, MEC, there was a independent survey for the Sani solution. And I believe all of us have read that report. And the 80% success rate that you have reported on when it comes to PSS, post-settlement support. Now, I've also read that report, and the report went even back to 2014, 2018, 2023. And in 2014, you have reported on 135 farms. Successes were 84, and then the failures 51. But the actual support over that period was 246 farms, not 135. What happened to the 111? There was no report because you were saying the survey is done on farms or businesses supported by the Western Cape government over the period. In 2014, it was 246. You have only reported on 135. What happened to the 111? Why haven't you reported on the 111? In 2018, you have reported on 93. Success, 67, failure, 26. But the support that you gave to businesses over that period was 243. Why haven't you reported on the 176? 2018, not 2018, 2023. In the total farms, this survey was done on 86 farms. 71 success rate, 71 successful, 15 failure. But the report is saying the survey was done on 63% of the total of farms that's been supported over that period, meaning 100% was 137 farms. 137 farms. You have only reported on 86 farms with 71 successful, 15 failures. Why haven't you reported on the 51 farms? The report is saying that you have only done a survey on 63% of the total farms that you are currently supporting. Why haven't you reported on the 51 farms? What happened to them that you have supported over that period? I would like to understand. And not only 2023, the 86, and then you say that our success rate is 83 or 86%. If you look at the total amount of businesses that have received support over that period, then it means the actual success rate is not 86, but actually 51%. If you take all those farms that you have supported over those periods. The report is saying so. The report is saying so. And I don't want to come to the conclusion that we've been misled by the report. The report is saying there's various reasons. It doesn't explain the reasons why they have not done a survey on those farms that have been supported by the department, PSS, post-settlement support over that period. It does not give any reasons. And I want to come to the conclusion that that report is actually misleading. It's misleading us, Chair. So really, I would like to understand, Chair, the support that we gave over a period of time to these farmers in what happened to those? Did they fall through the cracks? What happened to them? Why is there no report on them? Thanks.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Just from my side, Dr. Sibupitsa, I don't know if you were quiet or whether I missed it, but one of the projects launched by this department and that gained quite a lot of publicity is the food garden project or initiative. Is this department still committed to that? Do you believe that there is still opportunity for more of these food gardens? And do you believe this to be a sustainable initiative from the department? This second one is in terms of agricultural training. I do know that there's been a lot of noise regarding Elsenburg, etc. And I do see some beautiful figures in the budget report that we have here in front of us. But perhaps if you could just tell us about the vision. Was really grateful to read that you've done a follow-up study as to how many of those agricultural graduates do then find employment in the agricultural sector. And I must say those figures seem to be exceptionally high, taking into account that for many people, academic training is a springboard for many other careers as well. But we were privileged to visit the USA last year, like some of you as well. And I do know that the request was, can't we send more of these H2A VISM students to the United States of America? They require these young people with these exceptional skills, and we thought it might be a very good idea for some of our graduates to go and gain some experience, practical farm experience in the USA. But there's this barrier that many of particular poorer students can't overcome, and that is that you have to pay for your own transport and your visa and your passport to get there. Do you think that that is still something that the department would be able to attend to and perhaps place some of our graduates in positions, particularly those that may not find immediate employment after they graduate? Thank you. That's a long list of questions from all the members. Please, we look forward to hearing your responses.
Thank you, Chair. The HOD will deal with the majority of these questions. The issue of the scientific nature of agriculture. Since my appointment, I was reminded that agriculture is a science, and the science needs research, and particularly research on soil sciences, plant sciences, animal sciences, but also the whole issue of climate change. Those are the reason why we do this research, and very important that we stick to the scientific nature of research. The HOD will respond to the issue of climate change, but your issue talk about why do you reduce targets. The HOD will respond to that. I think his opening statement was, when you have massive budget cuts, there's two approaches. You cut your program or you cut your targets to minimize the impact on the agricultural sector. He explained that we chose to cut rather the targets than to cut particular programs, but he can explain that in greater detail. You asked me, and I'm going to defend this department because your question was, is this department not top heavy? My answer in response to this is that we have 17,000 farmers in the Western Cape. My answer is that we have 129,000 square kilometers in size to travel. We have different commodities. We have responsible for South Africa's primary agricultural exports of 55%. We are a very functional institution. We have the oldest agricultural training college on the African continent. The colleagues are here. We are recognized as one of the best agricultural training colleges, and the managers are here, functional. In addition to that, Mr. Marais, is that we have 7 research farms, and your 2 favorite ones are not included in this. You know your favorite ones. So we have 7 research farms, all well managed, world class. You have been there. And one of these, in fact, 2 of these research farms helped us during COVID-19 with the humanitarian relief, when the industry, the MPO, which is the milk producing organization, asked for a 1% daily production of milk that they donated during COVID. We also made that donation to the value of 100,000 Rand at Elsenburg and at Outeniqua Dairy. So I think if you look at the organogram of this department and you compare it with the organogram of other departments and the national department, your answer is valid outside the Western Cape. They are top heavy. What we are doing here in the Western Cape, other provinces of this size of this department, you will skrik if you see the top heaviness in those departments, but not here. So I think we have the most capable and competent people, including at Casidra, and I'm very proud of this senior managers. The issue of the workers on the truck, yes, I have done the work. In fact, last week, I had another meeting with Minister McKenzie. We had a discussion about the issue of the farm workers. It happened last week. You know that they have appeared, Chair, you drove it before the committee, because he's a new minister in this particular field. We had to brief him last week, and we've also asked the protocol for the transportation. And I said the protocol not only for farm workers, but also everybody that is being transported. I was on a site visit myself with a former minister, which is currently the speaker. Went there. I also went to people that you know, the chair of the Hexter Tafel Driver Association. I went there. He showed me excellent transportation. I also went on a truck in Elgin, saw a benchmark of how it needs to happen. Like you, I am not satisfied that it happens. And I have now asked that we change the transport regulation, which is a secondary legislation in terms of this, because when I went on the truck, the traffic cops told me, Minister, you can just stop this truck, you can inspect the truck, but you can do nothing. You need to change the transport regulation, and I've asked the minister to do that as soon as possible with in the MINMEC. Like you, I do not want to see any more farm workers die on trucks. And we have now also shared the protocol for the transportation of farm workers with the minister. It happened last week. Your issue about research, you questioned the methodology, you questioned 2014, 2018, 2023. We have done a survey, as you know, in 2014. It showed 68% success rate, 2018, 72%, and last year, 83%. But that's a question of research design, research methodology, and I think the research team is quite capable. But I want to advise the committee that there was absolutely not any misleading. That is maybe an interpretation issue, and the team is certainly, because misleading a committee is a serious crime, if I can put it this way. So I can guarantee you there was no misleading, maybe a different interpretation of how the research was presented, but these are functionalities of the research question, the research design, and the research methodology, and how the recommendations and findings are presented. We go even further than that. Dr. Trotsky even developed a management improvement plan, but the colleagues can do that. Yes, you did discuss this issue with me regarding the Voelvlei Dam. I referred it to the rural development. They were there, did some investigation. I cannot remember all the detail in terms of the back to office report, which I did get. And if anybody can recall that detail of that, they're quite happy to comment on that. I just want to say that, Mr. Murray, that the nature and the scale and the scope and the magnitude and the depth of the work of this department is actually amplified if you look at page 91. One of the type of things that we have to deal with is, and these are now only the sort of a risk report in the second quarter of last year. Cost of living crisis. You have seen what we had to deal with in terms of the cost of living crisis. Who asked the question about food gardens? The chairperson asked that, but the HOD will respond to that. But that was part of the cost of the living crisis. The electricity supply shortages, you will see how that impacted the extreme weather conditions, the animal disease, and lack of biosecurity. I happen to read, in fact, study the report of the national task team, of the national minister who appointed the task team about the biosecurity situation in South Africa. And the conclusion of that report was a one-liner to say the institutional architecture for biosecurity management in South Africa has collapsed. That's the outcome of that particular research. And hence, my focus last year, every year, the HOD and I sit and we say, what is the single thing that we need to do? We decided biosecurity need to be protected. And hence, I have developed, for the first time in the history of this province, a provincial veterinary week. Every year from now onwards, in the last week of September, we will have a veterinary services week because of the concept which Dr. Trautmann will explain, One Health, integrate human health, animal health, because the food that we eat must not kill us. And so together with the health department, we work on One Health, a concept, but I want to make sure that we are protecting, as Dr. Mogale said about the Northern Cape and the Eastern Cape, the transportation of our livestock and also the issues that deal with broader biosecurity. The last one that is there is increased barriers to international trade. We have seen that there was now an increase in international trade barriers. For example, before the war in Ukraine, it took 23 days for a shipping container to reach St. Petersburg in Russia. Now, as a result of the war, it takes 93 days to ship anything out. Now, with the war in the Middle East, you can imagine what is happening through the Suez Canal. These are all, and they have to study and make research about these things to advise me on a scientific basis. I do not take decisions based on my emotion or how I feel in the morning. I take advice from Dr. Mogale based on scientific evidence, and I think we have some expert people in this regard. This is now a longer type of story, but I think it is the magnitude of the scope and the scale of work. I can tell you this department, every single person, I meet with them, I go to the offices, I have the deepest respect and the depth of their knowledge. Unbelievable. Scientific, and to get these sort of audit outcomes that we have received. And I can tell you, when I look at the organogram of other provinces, daar raak ek, meneer Maree, jaloers oor die klomp mense wat daar sit. I'm not going to even tell you how many extension and advisory offices is there in the Eastern Cape. U gaan skrik.
Thank you, Dr. Petsa.
Sure. Chair, thank you very much. I'm going to direct the questions to the colleagues. Ilse Trautmann will deal with the climate change question that Member Maree had asked, particularly on the opportunities that climate change brings to us, because it's not only the disaster it brings, there are opportunities in there that we can actually pick up. Dr. Trotsky will respond. And let me respond to the rest of the questions. Elsenburg College Chairperson, I think we have decided it doesn't matter what the noise sounds, it's like, or what is the view. We have taken a decision supported by the evidence which the minister took to the provincial cabinet. My mandate is to protect the Elsenburg College. And I think we're soldiering on in terms of protecting the Elsenburg College with the University of Stellenbosch in terms of the MOA that we needed to have completed there. And of course, there's external study, very positive in terms of what happens to the students of Elsenburg College once they leave the college. Your other question related to the food gardens, whether we believe it's a good strategy. We are so convinced it is because there is evidence that just came, I think, last year, September, October, which I would like us to make it available to the committee to see the extent to which people that had been supported are able to then generate their own food. I can't forget the story of Auntie Millie of Cuton, whom I met a few years ago, and she said in Afrikaans that my son, tonight I'll be eating food from my own garden. And it's a very senior citizen. But many people may not understand what that does to that person, because all of a sudden this person is able to present to their own household food that they produced themselves. So it will be great that we share that report with yourself. In terms of the farmer support and the Putlisani solution study, I think we can take a lot of time there, Chairperson, in terms of the science, the methodology that was followed, and so on and so forth. But equally important, I think it's important to underscore the fact that the whole study is about businesses that had been supported. But in the land reform space, the less people you support, actually it's nice. It's a good story. Because if I started with 200 and all of a sudden I've got 80, the rest have actually graduated. I would want less people depending on the state. So the other side of the coin is actually what we want to push for, that less people are dependent on the conditional grant. But I'm sure Derek may want to ventilate on that as the person that led the study from our side. But clearly it is not a misleading, because that can never be the intention. It is the science that was followed, and the less, the better. This is the one chapter where you say the less people knock at the door of government asking for support, the better it is. More so given the economy that we have with only 6% growth, not 6%, 0.6% growth projected. And a solid economist at the department had taught me that if the economy must perform anything in terms of development, that economy must grow at least by 5%. And that's Derek Trotsky, who's a very solid economist at the department. We're growing at 0.6%, and the challenges are indeed very real. And therefore, we've got to find other ways to work. In terms of the question that Member Mare asked, are we top heavy? I got a WhatsApp here from my head of OSS, Paul Rockman, who wants to venture in terms of just to add to what Minister had responded to. But you will not find a department that is commensurate to us in this country. In agriculture, we're actually the smallest in terms of this top management, even in the Western Cape. If you look at the size of this management team, commensurate to the size of the department, we're still the smallest. And there's evidence to that was also shared with us by the National Treasury. With respect to Member Mare, which of the indicators will you drop? I'll drop none of them. Because, Chair, this system feeds on each other. It's a value chain. An engineer is needed to help the farmer that is supported by the extension officer. But I also need a vet to ensure that what is produced there is sound, it can be consumed, but also that it can be sold elsewhere. So hence the decision to say we're not going to cut because it will be catastrophic to cut anything, but we're going to shrink. Even with that shrinking, we are just managing the risk in order that it doesn't become so big for the people of the province. So it's never possible in agriculture, Honorable Chair, to cut anything given the science involved in agriculture, and which Minister has actually clarified as to why we need to protect that. Also will deal with the climate change and so on. With respect to Member Mari, the questions you asked around slide number 10, I think some of these things are seasonal, and it's not abnormal for us that in the first 3 quarters, in some instances, the performance is lower than 100%, but it is also around how we planned it. In some instances, the indicators is only meant to be delivered 100% by the end of quarter 4, in which case the colleagues will catch up in terms of what was planned. With respect to your slide 12, 15, and 16 on the sector, specific indicators, I think it's important to underscore the fact that we are a concurrent function as agriculture, and therefore some indicators are decided upon by the 9 provinces with the national agriculture. And if there's no indicator there, we'll not have anything because it's sectoral indicator, but we will have those under the province specific because the national colleagues may not see the need for it, but in the province we see the need, and therefore we're allowed to capture that under the province specific. And that's really the difference. With respect to Elema Letsema, this is one of the conditional grants we receive. We received 2 conditional grants for farmer support. One is CASP, number 2 is Elema. All of them for farmer support in the province. Elema, it is mainly for food production. that's the reason why it is provided to provinces. So we've had a cut of about 19.3 million rands, which Treasury in the province was able to find some 10 million. And we're very grateful for that because there is still some pain that farmers will have to experience, but I think the 10 million lessen that pain and allows some businesses to still run. Chairperson, with your permission, I'm going to ask Ilse and then Dirk, followed by Mr. Rockman.
Thank you, HOD, Chairperson and members. Yes, Mr. Marais, climate change opportunities, although it sounds quite strange to associate climate change with opportunities. I made a few notes. The first one is the extreme weather events, whether it's hail, rain, whatever the extreme weather event is, it puts us in a position to develop climate smart production practices. And we've seen that very, very successfully being implemented with the farmers in the Swartland during the extreme droughts they had. The ones that followed the conservation agricultural practices managed to take their harvesters out of their sheds and go and harvest the crop. The ones who didn't follow the conservation agriculture practices as part of climate change, one of the priority projects that we developed, they could not harvest. So the whole phenomenal nature of climate change has put us in a spot where we are really developing new practices. The second one is it also put us in a position where we are the world leader in conservation agriculture and also in pasture management against conservation agriculture practices. We are also put in a spot and a position where we can develop smart irrigation practices. If we look at Fruit Look and other decision-making tools that is now helping us to work very, very better or much better with water management, and also making sure that we have less input but better output in terms of natural resources. In terms of the research portfolio, in the program 5, there's 24 projects that's focusing on climate change as part of the research portfolio addressing the research needs. And if we talk about research, HOD and Minister also mentioned the Stellenbosch University School for Climate Studies that was established 2 years ago. We signed an MOA with them in November 2023, and that would allow us to exchange students, exchange capacity, and also build capacity within climate change, which is another human capital development initiative and opportunity, but also would put us more on the forefront of research in the world. And for that particular reason, also being so well known, and excuse me for using that word, well known for the extreme disasters in the Western Cape, we were also positively selected as one of the founding members of the Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership, which was the agreement was signed by myself in December 2023 at COP28, together with 14 other regions in the world. And that would put us on the forefront of sharing information and learning from one another, and also looking at research gaps between the 15 Mediterranean countries. I think where we are at the moment in terms of climate change, we are slowly but surely moving from a reactive approach to extreme events to a proactive one. Doing better assessments, and there our program Sustainable Resource Use and Management kicks in, and we are more and more getting more proactive than just being reactive. And hopefully with the MCAP agreement that we've signed, we will advance in terms of the proactive strategies. Just on a last note, load shedding. Load shedding is seen as all by itself, but it's part of the climate change event in South Africa. And it was quite interesting that with load shedding, the Karoo farmers were gearing themselves to to manage their own energy to such an extent that when the problems came now with Eskom in the Karoo, where they were 14 days without electricity, the farmers could survive because they made their proactive plans. So there's also a risk of confusing maintenance issues with climate change. But in terms of climate change, I think the opportunities are wide and many, and we are tapping into those. Thank you so much, HOD and Chairperson.
Chairperson, HOD Minister. Let me start with a question by Member Moran. If you look at page 4 of the latest report, you will find the selection of businesses. There were 137 businesses, and then there were a number of criteria. Well, as part of this research, you quite often, well, you very seldom have got the resources to do the whole sample. One has to take a specific sample, what is allowed by your resources. The challenge is to make sure that this sample is selected responsibly and according to certain criteria so that one can get the indication of area and commodity and things like that. So in this instance, the criteria that was used so that they are representative of location, in other words, not only in the Karoo, but throughout the province, the commodity spread, size of operations, you've got some big and some small, a single person or a group a project, the land reform sub-program through which the land was acquired, and type of land right. In other words, ownership, leasehold, permission to occupy, membership of a legal entity, etc. So we try to get as big as possible a spread of these issues so that we can also make recommendations from this. I can only say I'm very sorry that you feel that we may not be honest from a research perspective, but this is really very good research approach that we followed. So, this type of process will be acceptable in any academic environment, you know, this idea of sampling. In this, I just want to make one comment also in terms of the improvement of the success rate. It is also an indication that this report don't end up on a shelf. We take each of these reports we've taken and we said, okay, what must we do differently? What must we add to this process so that we can provide improved success rate? For instance, in one of the first, one of the recommendations in the first report is that we must introduce a record-keeping system. So since then, Mongiswa and her team has introduced a record-keeping system for land reform beneficiaries. And based on this, because they are now forced to analyze the issue and see what is happening, we has improved the success rate. I must be very honest with you. I was very worried about this evaluation that we may not show an increase, but we actually did show an increase. And I think that is very important also. And this was done independently, etc. I think so. So that's the one issue. I want to respond to the H2A visa issue highlighted by the chair. Yes, we were approached about a year ago by the US consulate. I think what we must remember about this H2A, this whole system, it's a totally private-driven system. There is no government system that send people over or whatever. It is a farmer in the USA that approach an agent and say, I am looking for somebody to work on my farm for 6 months. And that agent then go and source throughout the world. And at this stage, for the H2A visa, South Africa is one of the most favorite countries. So it is the farmer is on that farm. He or she want a particular service or skill set. The agent is dependent on the trust that he or she has built with the farmer. And the agent then go and source anywhere in the world. So it is very difficult. We cannot send over students under H2A. What we can try from our side is to improve the skill set of some of these young people, not only for the H2A. And this is one of the points that we've made. It is not about the United States. We don't want to train students here for their economy. We want to train students for our economy. Because if they've got this particular skill set and they apply it in our economy, it is also to the benefit. However, if we can get USA funding to do this, and if this person can go abroad to get better experience, the better for everybody of us. So where we are now, my apology, where we are now is we engage with the University of the Free State, and Gertrude were part of that team. And there's an agreement that they will provide some technical, in collaboration, they will provide some technical courses that they will do online, but that we from our side will do some practical interventions. For instance, in tractor driving. It is not, what is required abroad is not somebody that can sit on a tractor and drive on the road. What you need is somebody that can actually go into a field and plow that field. And wat is instel in Engels? Adjust. You to adjust that plow to do a proper plowing exercise in that particular field. That is the skills that's required, and what we will see how feasible is it and cost efficient is it from our side to provide that practical. So this is where we are working with the University of the Free State to do that. May I just also respond to the sector indicators. I think what is important, and that is an advantage, is that the sector indicators, because all 9 provinces are measuring the same things, we can compare provinces in an independent process. Those are being audited, so there is not, not all provincial departments are properly audited. We know that, but it does provide us with a good measure to compare different provinces and different interventions, etc. And every time we are at this PME forum, Performance Managing, Monitoring and Evaluation Forum, a comparison is made between the 9 provinces, and the Western Cape are normally out the top of these particular indicators. Thanks, HUD.
Thank you. Chairperson, your indulgence quickly. Let me just add some statistics and some comparisons in response to Mr. Marais' question about top-heavy. I think there's different layers to top-heavy. So certainly in support of the HUD and the Minister's comment. Let's start out with the budget as a comparison, the COE budget as a comparison with the overall budget, and COE would constitute 45.2%. And I think you will appreciate that as government department statistics go, you'd find difficult to find a similar comparison. Health is above 80%, the COE, education as well. So again, our department at 45% is really showing that we're running a tight ship there. If I look at another comparison, would be the approved establishment of the department is 1,600 posts. Yet we have permanent staff at 835. Again, driven by budget, but again, driven by budget. And 1,600 is the approved establishment, but we've got permanent staff of 835. So again, just to demonstrate that yes, we need to do more with less. Another statistic, because I think the comparisons help around the issue of top-heavy, is approved establishment of 34 senior managers. Yet, as we stand today, and we're so thankful for our colleague that has joined us, we're now at 17. At 17 out of 34. Because I think it helps again about the issue of top-heavy. But I think another statistic, out of the 835, really, if I take, and you know that in our system, we have levels 1 to 16, 16 being the HOD, from levels 10 downwards, 700 staff at levels 10 to levels 1. What does that say about the staff categories? They at the supervisory level, at the production level, at the skilled level, at the unskilled level. So I've just unpacked that a little bit, just to demonstrate that the perception of top heavy is perhaps in our case is perhaps not the right one. If anything, we probably going to gain your sympathy in terms of our staffing numbers here. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd just like to respond also to Mr. Murray, because I made it my mission that climate change must be considered. The question was, and I think they have answered excellently, Dr. Troutman, on the issue of what is the value of climate change, or how is it an opportunity. When I looked at the cabinet, I said to the Premier, I want climate change to be permanently on the agenda of the cabinet. It is now a permanent item. I've asked the cabinet to appoint an interministerial committee on climate change. We now have that committee. 3, last week, we approved the climate change governance framework. Last Wednesday, we had a cabinet meeting, it has been approved. Last Friday, as Dr. Troutman indicated, we had also global leaders taking part in our first ever climate change Indaba that we hosted here. We also, Dr. Troutman in the past hosted 2 different financial years, youth in climate change dialogues. One took also place in Oudtshoorn. We want the youth to be involved in climate change. I've asked that we now also take climate change not only to the youth, but to the ECDs, so that children at a small age can be exposed to climate change. Because what happens when there's a flood or a fire, the child, 2, 3 years old, see the mummy running and grab the mahi by the rock. And I think we need to get climate change in the ECD curriculum, and we're busy with that. Dr. Troutman already spoke about conservation agriculture. He spoke about Fruit Look. I mentioned about IFAD, the International Fund for Agricultural Development. I have now, every year, you're familiar as a former Premier, that we have to appear before the Minister of Finance for money. I have now asked that we also have a climate change MTech. Everybody in this government must sit around the table and say, now we bid for climate change, not for my department, every single department, like we do with infrastructure. I think we are very fortunate that now, for the first time ever, we have established a Mediterranean Climate Action Forum. Dr. Ilse referred to that. That was signed at the 4th of December last year at COP28. We're a founding member. Fantastic. Last Friday, because I want this government to commit this government to climate change for the next 10, 15 years. And we have signed that declaration on Friday. Because why do we do this? It's going to become more and more important to show your commitment. Because what is a declaration? It's a statement of intent. It's a commitment of a government. And if we want to export in future, they're going to look at what climate change mitigation strategies are you putting in place in terms of carbon credits. So you're going to be punished in terms of exports if you don't commit to certain carbon credits, the regime. So what we are doing now is we're preparing to protect our future exports in the field of climate change, because it is coming. You are familiar in this committee that we have a drought portal. We're going to amend and add to have a climate change portal. When the European Union and the United States and Russia and China comes with climate change architecture, we want to say we have put the climate change governance systems and indicators in place so that we can export around the world. Export in future will now become climate change resilient, and I think we put that in place. So I give you a broader picture, but I think we are happy to see in the future where we can launch a climate change portal for the rest of the world. But climate change is not only our job. It's a job of the whole of the government, and as Dr. Trautmann and Sebo Petzer mentioned last week, private sector must come to the table. That we want to see everybody involved in climate change. And if you look at the documents that we have in front of us, I just look now, Dr. Mogale spoke about on page 14, he spoke about the priority focus areas for the growth strategy. There are 7. All 7 have an impact on climate change. All 7, what we are now doing is going to give effect of all 7 priority focus areas for the growth of jobs. So it is significant for job creation and stimulating economic growth in the Western Cape.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable members, I see the hand of the Honourable Maran, then Honourable Marais, and then Murray. Please, if I can ask that you again be brief and to the point in asking your questions. I do know the Honourable Marais has objected to the speed by which some people respond. But Honourable Marais, I've been told if you think that Mrs. Governor speaks fast, you must see her when she's got her running shoes on. So over to you, Honourable Maran.
Chair, thanks again. And I've heard a response from Dr. Trotsky. And he raised 2 factors. The one is resources that might determine how many we can do. And then he raised another factor, which is the criteria. So they've started with 137 farms or businesses, 137. The survey was done on 86 farms. So they might have arrived at the point where they are saying, with the money that we got, we can only do 86 farms and not 137. Which 86 farms? Now the criteria kicks in, saying in terms of the criteria, this is the 86 that we will do. I want to know, what happened to the 51? What happened to the 51? No one can report what happened on the 51 because the department have supported 137 farms at that particular point in time. The report is misleading. The report is misleading because you can't come and say, but we have only done 86 and you can't give us a report about the 51. What happened to the 51? You can't give us a report which says, no, they have failed or they were successful. The same in the previous years. We still got a lot of time, right? So that's basically, Chair. In the previous periods, 2014, it was 246, but you only reported on 135. You can't tell us what happened with the 111. Doesn't make sense. Then, Chair, lastly, on this H2A program, and before we went last year, May month, we went to the US, California, and we had a meeting with the High Commissioner's office. You were there. And they informed us about it. At that stage, we were not even aware of this particular program. So they informed us about this program, and they raised concerns. And on our return, we raised it, MEC, even with you. They told us, the Americans told us that, look, almost 100% of the workers that goes overseas are white. They told us that. They are saying that these agencies that are recruiting workers, not students, workers, only focus on whites. The number from the previous year up till the last year have doubled from 4,500 to 9,000. The agencies are paying the tickets, airplane tickets. They are paying for the visas and that whatever that needs to be paid. And because they're getting back that monies, they raise a concern with us by saying workers on that side is getting uncomfortable because they don't see the traditional farm worker that you find in the Western Cape or South Africa. Is there maybe intervention from the government side, MEC, to make sure that that particular picture changes? That picture changes. And it seems so far it haven't changed because those poor workers who really wants to go, they can't afford to pay for the visas, can't afford to pay for the plane tickets. They can't afford that. And maybe how then do you support them to also be part of that particular crop of the cream? They told us even that even the Western Cape government and the MEC himself don't support the minimum wage. We don't support it because I've asked you numerous. In America, the wages of farm workers is set by the government. They regulate the farm workers' minimum wage on that side. And at that particular point in time when we were there, it was around about $4,500. And the exchange rate when we went there was almost 20 Rand, meaning 90,000 Rand per month. They're getting free transport, they're getting free housing, they're getting free food. Now, and I hear the response from Sotoski saying, but it's not our program. It's a private thing. Government don't send workers. Also, all that we are saying, the Americans raise a concern with us and want to check whether there can be some intervention from the government side. Thanks. Then lastly, Chair, just wanted to check 526, the modernization project. I think it was supposed to 526. Just wanted to check the status of the modernization project that happened at Elsenburg, whether it's been completed, whether we've done with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Pare.
Thank you. I don't like, I'm not used to getting so much attention. So I feel quite a bit uncomfortable with all. I hear my name all over, so okay. All right. Minister, I accept your credentials. Don't doubt that. I accept the credentials, the talent around this table, quality of men and women. That is not, I'm talking systems, targets, successes based on thorough research. Now, we have started this food council is fine, but we know what cost of water is. So I don't know how long people are going to put water on their lawns or gardens to have every 6 months a potato. So I'm not sure whether that's going to work. Maybe lettuce, things like that. It takes 3 or 6 months for a carrot to grow in your garden. In the meantime, they must eat. So I'm a bit not so on that. But I'm talking more about emerging small farmers. Minister, I address it through you. You're the speaker here, so I will talk to you via to your department. And I know that there's a big problem with certification of agricultural products. You just can't say, I'm now in the honeyboots business, or I'm in rooibos business. I'm going to... No. There's strict certification, and it's expensive. So what happens? This poor colored farmer or black farmer, he don't have a certificate to sell his products overseas. He's going to go through a white farmer who's got the certificate. And a white farmer says, okay, I'll sell your product. I get 20 Rand for so much, and I give you 5 Rand because the other 15 Rand is mine. Otherwise, I won't certify your goods or market overseas because I'm a commercial farmer, you're not. How are we addressing this? The second thing is, what is the business model for emerging farmers? Is there a business model that you say, this is a successful model? You don't comply with all the regulations, but there is this model, how we are going to show you how to produce food of certain qualities, international standards, and market it under your own name. Is there such a policy? Then, in terms of your drought policy,
and your CC portals. Is this done, Minister, in collaboration with the municipalities? Or are we doing it on our own? Because, you know, a lot of waste is the municipalities. They are the people. You know, all these dumping sites they've got here, and I don't know if they can buy them. We can again, we see hulle herwin. As we talk about environmental issues, as almal hierdie rommel wat hoppe lê. Ons het Ethlon toegemaak. Weet jy wat die lulde slim plan was nie? 'n Denplaat, right. Hulle het toegemaak hier in Ethlon, where we could produce energy by waste. And we said, no, we don't need this. They let it gebom of iets in the and it imploded. And now we don't have those towers in Athlone anymore, but we have rubbish heaps all over landfill sites. What is it? How can we get together? And I know I only tell you this because I think I can smell intelligence in this room. So I won't ask somebody to come up with a plan if I don't think I'm speaking to highly intelligent people. Politicians are not supposed to be intelligent. That's why we employ you. So don't think that I'm saying you top heavy. I just wanted to know the facts. You ask a question, you get an answer. You don't ask a question, you'll never know the answer. So I'm satisfied it's not top heavy, but at least I've got it now on good authority that you're not top heavy. So don't feel that I slighted you. No, I just need to know why I'm here and why they didn't elect somebody else in my place. So now, then the gas in the Karoo, Minister. There's a lot of gas in the Karoo, which the environmentalist says, no, you can't get all of it. There's trillions of I don't know what they call it, gas. How do you measure gas? Kilos of gas in the Karoo, which Muscat has been using for years for energy generation. The Karoo is in the Western Cape. So why can't we go there? Why must the people have expensive? I can't even afford those things on the roof. Or MP's geld. And I just want to know what is there a way that we can have a plan and present a plan how we can utilize the gas that's in the Karoo, underground gas. And I just want to know if there's something else before Interministerial Committee on Climate Change that was approved, global leaders taking part in this, youth in climate change dialogues, that all sounds beautiful, and I'm impressed. I'm impressed, but I ask a question because I need information to take part in a debate in the House. Now, if you don't tell me your faults also, I have nothing to say. So I'm trying to find out what is the broad plan you have here. I heard a lot of things, Chairman, they're going to do, but somehow all these things must fit into each other. They can't stand on their own legs. I just want to know, so how does this fit into a broad plan? Certification of products, weather and climate change, water management, all these things is important things, and I want to compliment the department. But I think that the stringent food, quality of food is also very important. And I would like to know, how are you going to guarantee the quality of foods? I've contacted, for argument's sake, jungle oats. I used to eat jungle oats since I was a child. I don't eat jungle oats anymore. The stuff that's in there is no more oat. It's stuff I can't even chew. So when you talk about quality foods, we're going to look at all these things, and we depend on you guys to let us know why that is the case. Thank you. That's my last contribution.
Thank you. Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Chair.
May I just say, I've been informed that there are refreshments outside. If we could aim for a break at about 1600 hours. I should have indeed. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, on slide 17, this relates to the provision of 3.504 million made for generators at research farm. At research farms. I just wanted to understand, of course, the diesel for the generators is quite an expense, 3.5. And so in terms of future planning, whether there will be any transition to more green alternatives instead of using the diesel at the research farms. Then, Chair, I'm just interested, slide 21, where it talks about risk impacts for the Western Cape, based as well on the World Economic Forum's perspective. So I'm just curious on what the mitigations are, and particularly for risk impact 5, which is the cost of living crisis. So how is the department mitigating? What are they mitigating exactly? And then last one for this round, Chair. Yep, that one. We're just curious, slide 25. So river protection works. It says that no provision money has been made for 23-24. So I just wanted to query why this was and what the details there were. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
Yeah.
HOD. And can I, now that you've seen the urgency in Honourable Marais' voice as well, please, if you could be to the point. Thank you.
It's very difficult, Chair, but I will do so, since I'm also a big lover of tea. So I will be short, not to miss my tea. Sir, Chair, the colleagues can answer the issue of the certification. I think Honourable Marais asked also about market access for small-scale farmers, emerging farmers. I think the colleagues can answer that. And the certification and export, and then the issue of the business model for small-scale farmers, the department. Honourable Member Marais, I was also very concerned about the role of municipalities in agriculture, and that's why I hosted the Municipal Agricultural Summit. And the idea was that municipalities must understand the importance of agriculture in this province, because all farms are within the jurisdiction of municipalities. And to make sure that the municipalities are aligned with what we do, under Dirk Trotsky, there is an official that does his work is in terms of integrated development plan. He attends the IDP sessions of municipalities. He makes sure that there is linkages between agriculture, what the municipality is, and he was also responsible for that, so that we have the inter-IGR. Minister Bradell, I think, is best to answer the issue of the gas, and I'm never going to speak things about that I don't know anything about. Minister Bradell maybe is the best person, and also the Energy Council of the Premier. Sir, Mr. Marais, you speak about your salary. That is an item for vote 2. We are now discussing vote 11, so it is at the wrong meeting. Then the issue of diesel, I also made a note of that diesel, but the colleagues will answer that. But then the overall model, you ask, what is the overall model? I think that is what the HOD mentioned on page 8. He said the critical priority areas: increase agricultural production, market access, food security, ecological infrastructure, and rural safety. Those are the sort of things that is the principles that governing this budget. And that is, if you ask what is a global thing, that is what it is. And since, Mr. Marais, you introduced the British system of tea time, in the British system, there was punishment for people that interfere in tea time. There are 2 laws in government that you may never break. One is tea time. The other one is there's a king in government. His name is parking. You never interfere with the parking and with tea time.
Judy?
Chair, thank you all. Very quick. Ilse will respond on the modernization of the Elsenbeck. Member Marais, Member Maran, the issue of sampling, why we didn't do the 137. I mean, it's really the science of sampling. And what comes to my mind is in South Africa, we talk about the life expectancy. Not everybody was engaged to determine the living, to determine what that is. It's really a science of sampling. And a sample of over 60%, you won't find it even at universities. They do about 25% most. That's the maximum. 62%, it's massive. And the results you get out of that, definitely one has to believe that, because that sample was actually massive scientifically. So with respect to the issue of the VSAMs, the H2A, I think the challenge with that is that if I, as the accounting officer, do some things to support that opportunity from this vote, I may go to jail. Because the question is, I don't have a mandate to do that. But I've got a responsibility to engage the private sector partners to support those previously disadvantaged individuals who may actually grab this opportunity. And that is why we're engaging, in fact, next week with SSK as one of the private agricultural providers in the province and many others to determine the extent to which they would have appetite to support these young people. In fact, Derek said to me last week that the colleagues from the US want a meeting with us because new officials had come through. And this issue will be on the agenda again. So we'll do everything we need to do in our power to engage our private sector colleagues to ask them to help these agri workers that may actually take advantage of these opportunities in the US. With respect to water and municipality, water in particular for food gardens, Honorable Mare, it will excite you to know that we don't allow people to use municipal water for food gardens. It's not our system. We encourage them to use recycled water. We have designed what we call family drip irrigation systems so that people don't rely on municipal water because it's costly, but also it's a scarce resource in our space. Somebody said South Africa is a desert because we don't have enough water resources. And obviously, we can learn from other nations where people recycle water to produce their own food. And that's what we actually have done probably for 10 years going in the department to support the citizens. With respect to Member Mare, your question on slide 17, I'm trying to manage time for the tea time and the parking. We use diesel because that's really what we can do now. With respect to solar panels as a way of energy security, we had focused on Elsenbeck for now to start as a starting point. And I think members would be aware of the great work that has gone into Elsenbeck to the extent that when some stage 2, stage 3 hit everybody in Stellenbosch, we actually protected because we've got solar on the rooftop at Elsenbeck. But obviously, with budgets becoming available, we'll obviously explore that as an opportunity for the rest of the farms. With respect to the cost of living crisis and what are we protecting, how are we doing it? We do that through food gardens. And the evidence that we have already does indicate the extent to which these food gardens really help communities that have got nothing else. But also, it goes a long way in building their self-esteem, which you can't buy from any store. And we need a lot of our people to actually start believing in themselves. And food gardens provide that opportunity for people to believe they can do some things for themselves. Slide number 25, the CFO will quickly respond to that. And Ilse will briefly touch on the progress on modernization at Elsenbeck.
Thank you so much. Member Murray, I can confirm that there was indeed an allocation in 23-24 for river protection works. However, in the adjustment budgets process, there was scenario-based budgeting, and we had to, due to severe fiscal constraints, budget had to be cut, and that was one of the areas that was cut. The Treasury then shifted it to 24-25, so that same amount was just moved into the coming financial year.
Chair, thank you. Let me be brief on modernization. And thank you to my colleague Paul and his team, and also the Department of Infrastructure for assisting. The research labs, yes, it's going very well, but in this document you will still see it was due July 2023. We had a severe delay in the modernization due to a non-performing contractor, and we were then confronted with, do we stop the building with this contractor, with the possible case of them taking us to court, or do we continue but give them severe penalties? And that's where we are. But I'm happy to report that if all goes good, by mid-May, we will have the labs finished, and we will move back and be operational. But also allow me to just give you quickly that the Provincial Veterinary Lab also being modernized. It is close to completion, and all the accreditation has been done. And if all goes well, on the 1st of April, the new Provincial Veterinary Lab will be opened. And then the last modernization, if I can call it like that, was the Roland Street offices of the Veterinary Export Control. And they moved from Milnerton to a more functional, larger, more effective and client-friendly facility in Roland Street. That is about the modernization. But just allow me to just make 2 more or 3 more comments. The one on the CC portals, the municipality, yes, we're working very closely with our sister department, Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, who's working very hard on the climate change side for municipalities. And then coming back to what HUD said in terms of the One Health, there's also been a discussion with Dr. Sadiq Tarim at Department of Health to take the organic waste from the hospitals into food gardens in the city of Cape Town. That discussion was about 6 weeks ago. And we are really trying to make the amount of waste going to landfills less and put it into more friendly waste to wealth projects. Just touching on the climate change initiatives, the broad plan. The broad plan is in place, Mr. Marie, and that is the Western Cape Climate Change Response Strategy that was revisited and redesigned in 2021. And for agriculture, we've got the first sector plan for a province, a smart agri plan. And between those 2 very high level plans, we are moving into the international arena with the MCAP. And within the MCAP, there will be very, very many funds coming our way if we have good projects. I did not say it in the first comment, but they are looking in the governance structure of the MCAP to projects between $100,000 to $250,000, which is a lot of money. And there's a lot of donor funding coming into the Mediterranean Partnership as well. The last one, Member Murray, in terms of the diesel on the farms, yes, HUD was very correct in that. But at Elsenburg, we've got solar at the dairy. Thank you to Paul and his team, and in the Department of Infrastructure. So we're less dependent on generators in that. And I heard a slight rumor, which might come true, and that is that the Outeniqua farm will also be fitted with solar. But once again, it's depending on the budget of the Department of Infrastructure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, may I ask, are there any further questions for the Minister, for the department? No? Thank you very much then, Minister. Thank you very much, Dr. Shebopetsa, and to the team. I think you can be grateful that your offices are not in the CBD and that you don't need to fight with the traffic as you now will have to in leaving Cape Town. I believe there may be some more questions, but those we can put in writing, particularly regarding the veterinary services and so on. But thank you very much for explaining the budget to us. We wish you everything of the best. We will now as a committee, consider the budget and then express in the form of a report to the budget committee and then later to the House, we would express our views on that. But for the time being, thank you very much. May I also just indicate to you that this is probably the last meeting of this nature with the current standing committee. There are a number of us that are retiring or resigning at the end of this term. For me personally, it was a wonderful experience, really a learning experience to, at my age, be introduced to so many new fields. It was really exciting. And I gained a lot of respect for the science of agriculture and for the people behind the science. Thank you very much for what you are doing. Thank you for what you've already achieved. I do know that there are numerous challenges waiting for us, such as the maximum utilization of the additional water from the Clanwilliam Dam, the next storage project, perhaps in the Swellendam area, and so on. Thank you for not running out of ideas and proposals, and for improving the capacity or the potential of the Western Cape to keep on leading this country in terms of agricultural exports, earning foreign currency, and most importantly, feeding not only the South African nation, but also providing food to many, many other nations. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much from my side. I do know that we've got an honourable minister who always likes to have the last word. So if you'll allow me, I'll give the honourable minister an opportunity. Minister, thank you. Over to you.
Chair, thank you very much. Since this is the last formal meetings with you in this capacity as the standing committee, very important standing committee and a very defender of our budget, I want to express my thanks and appreciation to you as the chair, but also as members of this committee, because I always, when I go to Parliament, I know that I cannot speak in Parliament without your support of defending this budget also in the committee, but also in the House. I want to thank you because this is the last formal, as you mentioned, you will be retiring and there may be some other members, but I want to, Honourable Member Marais, when you consider the budget of the various portfolios, very important to look at the gratuity in the budget. So don't pass any budget where there's not gratuity in your budget vote, because that is also something you have to look at in terms of your future career planning. So thank you very much, and thank you to the committee secretary.
Thank you very much. Let's give each other a great hand. Thank you. Thank you very much. Minister, please, we're still looking for that line in the budget, but safe travel to you all. Thank you very much. Please help yourself to the snacks and the tea outside. The traffic is in any case going to need all your strength. Okay.
We're just going to be a few minutes.
Thank you, honourable members. I want to propose, after having listened to the budget, the explanation of the budget, that we support this budget Thank you. It seems to me with a majority of hands, the budget is being supported. Honourable Maran, do you differ from us? Thank you. So you do not support the budget. Do you want your opposition to the budget being recorded?
Yes.
It will be.
Come here, majority party has a minority report.
A minority view.
Thank you. Good. So let's just give Ms. Niekerk a minute to prepare the report. Unfortunately, we cannot flight the report on the screen, but I will read it to you so that it's also on the recording of this meeting. So, honourable members, I put to you report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning on Vote 11, Agriculture, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill, B1 of 2024, dated the 12th of March 2024 as follows. The Standing Committee on Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, having considered the subject of Vote 11, Agriculture, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill, B1 2024, referred to in accordance with Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view that it does not support the vote.
Thank you.
I put the report to you. There's a proposal that we adopt the report. There's a seconder in the form of, or in the name of the Honourable Marais.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, this report is then duly adopted. Is there anything that any one of you would like to say, ask, proposals? Nothing?
I just want to say, if I don't see any of you again, it was so nice meeting all of you again. So I enjoyed being on this committee.
And I trust we'll see each other in the House, or perhaps even in other committees.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.